I need your help. I'm addicted. I cannot stop drafting, and I'm going to go through and look at all my drafts and create a little list. We're going to get my notepad out here, grab a pen, go, okay, who are my most drafted wide receivers? Who are some guys I cannot stop drafting? I have 5 names here we're going to go through, and I'm going to tell you why I have been drafting these guys over and over and over again over there on Underdog Fantasy. But before we get into it, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you like fantasy football half as much as I do. Just kidding. There's no way you like fantasy football half as much as I do. And also, if you want to get into some fantasy football drafts right now, we are closing in on over 100 drafts. By the time this video is out, we've definitely had over 100 real money fantasy drafts this year. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy on Underdog Fantasy. You will see us drafting there every single day. Not only are we drafting there every single day so you can get in a draft with us in the live stream, but you can go get in a draft in the public lobby. You can go get in a draft with your friends. And when you sign up and use promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You'll get our 2022 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide. You'll get our 2022 rankings. You will get our 2022 Dynasty rankings. You'll get our rookie ranks. And most importantly, you'll have some fun. But that should be it. Let's go through. Let's look into these wide receivers. And the first player, I did not think I was going to be drafting him. I honestly thought that I would have had very little Jaylen Waddle this offseason because let's start off with the negatives. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk positive negatives. We're going to go through a bull case and a bear case on each player. The bearish case on Jaylen Waddle is if you go through and if you look at last season, he had very little target competition. Remember, we thought there was going to be some serious target competition. You looked around, they gave Will Fuller almost $10 million. They still had Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker back in 2019 had a very respectful season. I was saying, oh, okay. Well, they have those 2 wide receivers. They have Mike Gesicki. Well, turned out that no. I mean, we didn't have to be worried about any of those players. Jaylen Waddle came out and dominated against a bad competition. So now when you have Tyreek Hill getting added into this offense, not good for Jaylen Waddle. Now, I will say, Tyreek Hill being added in is different than what you're going to have with someone like Davante Adams, because Tyreek Hill is not a wide receiver that's going to command 28, 29, 30% of his team's target share. Tyreek Hill historically has been closer to about 23%. Tyreek Hill has been closer to a wide receiver that is winning with efficiency rather than winning with volume. So if we had to choose, if we had to pick a wide receiver to get added into this offense to play alongside Jaylen Waddle, out of the elite options, we're choosing Tyreek Hill. We're not going for Davante Adams. We're not going for Stephon Diggs. So Tyreek Hill, while yes, he should complement Waddle from a real life perspective, and from a real life NFL perspective, the addition of Tyreek Hill will help this overall offense and help Waddle. But the target competition is going to be there. Tyreek Hill should be the wide receiver 1. And not only are you getting that added target competition coming in, but more importantly, almost, I want to come out here and say that Tua Tagovailoa looks to be a pretty bad quarterback. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. I understand he can improve. I understand that Tua Tagovailoa can get better. But if we go through and if we look at Tua Tagovailoa this past season, he averaged 6.5 adjusted yards per pass attempt. And if we look at quarterbacks that had fewer adjusted yards per pass attempt, you had Taylor Heineke, Davis Mills, Daniel Jones, Ben Roethlisberger, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, Zach Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, Trevor Lawrence, and Sam Darnold. Those were the quarterbacks that you had with a worse adjusted yards per pass attempt. Now, the wide receivers from those teams that were actually productive this past season, yeah, you had Deontay Johnson, you had Brandon Cooks, you had DJ Moore, and when you hear those names, you're pretty excited. But then you realize, oh dear God, there were so many wide receivers from these teams that busted as well. Remember where people were drafting Terry McLaurin. Remember where people were drafting Kenny Golladay. Remember where people were drafting Chase Claypool. Remember where people were drafting Allen Robinson. Remember where people were drafting Elijah Moore. Remember where people were drafting DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault. Oh my God. It's just bust after bust after bust. If you are playing with this piss poor quarterback play, it is so hard. It is extremely difficult to elevate your overall play in an inefficient passing offense, even if you're an elite level wide receiver. So the issue with Jaylen Waddle and why I thought I wasn't going to be drafting him was the added target competition and the perceived bad quarterback play. Now, it's still in the range of outcomes. It's still possible that Tua Tagovailoa is secretly good. He's hiding it down there somewhere deep down within him. There's a good quarterback hiding. That's what I'm hoping for, because Jaylen Waddle is my most drafted wide receiver so far this year. Let's go over to the bullish case of Jaylen Waddle. Let's remember him coming into the NFL. This was a wide receiver I didn't know what to do with. If you plugged him in our wide receiver prospect model, it didn't really shape up to anything, because remember, the production didn't look like much. Throughout his Alabama career, he played with Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, and John Mechie. 4 quality NFL wide receivers. 3 of them got drafted in the first round. Like 3 very good receivers. So he was a polarizing prospect. The Miami Dolphins say, hey, we know what Jaylen Waddle is. We're going to go and trade the 12th overall pick and a future first to go take Jaylen Waddle at 6. Now, Waddle, his rookie season was unfreaking believable. Now you go through and you look at these per game numbers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few filters. I want to give a shout out to RotoViz. We're looking at the RotoViz screener. We're going to be looking at this a lot this upcoming season. I'm happy to add this to our analysis compared to where we were last year. But if we look at that RotoViz screener and we filter out a couple things, we want 7.7 targets per game. That's what Jaylen Waddle had. And we want 63 receiving yards per game. If we filter those down and look at wide receivers since the year 2000 that were able to have 7.7 targets a game and 63 receiving yards a game as rookies, you have Odell Beckham Jr., Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones, AJ Green, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper. The cream of the crop. Like, oh dear God, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, like, oh my gosh, what are we looking at? And then at the bottom of that list, you know who's popping up, sneaking their head in. Jaylen Waddle is sneaking into this list. That is how good Jaylen Waddle was as a rookie. So I want to sit here and say, okay, well, if Jaylen Waddle was the wide receiver 13 and right now on Underdog Fantasy, despite that rookie season, so many people are nervous about Tyreek Hill, are nervous about Tua Tagovailoa. I'm nervous too. I can't come out here and say Tua is a good quarterback. Trust me. I wish I could. I wish I could come out here and lie to y'all. I have so much money invested into Tyreek Hill at this point. But right now, the players that are somehow going over him include Michael Pittman, include Mike Williams, who are now going into their year 3 season, who are now going into their second contract, that have never had a year as good as what Jaylen Waddle was as a rookie. So what I want to try to say is, if Jaylen Waddle, where last year he was the wide receiver 13, is the wide receiver 13 again, his second season, he just doesn't get worse. He stays the same in fantasy. He overcomes Tyreek Hill being added on. He still beats his ADP. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 15 on Underdog Fantasy at the end of the 3rd round, the beginning of the 4th. I know we spoke a lot more about the risk with Jaylen Waddle because I want to be transparent. There are risks. There are red flags. There's a reason he's going this late. But to look at that rookie production, to look at what the Miami Dolphins invested into him, I'm willing to make the bet, if Tua Tagovailoa does not improve that much with Tyreek Hill coming over, I think Jaylen Waddle will be a high-end wide receiver too. If Tua Tagovailoa somehow, some way is actually good, then dear God, the upside's there. Now let's move over to our next option. This is going to be someone else that has really bad quarterback play. He has had the worst quarterback play in the NFL over the past 4 years, DJ Moore. Now, moving on to DJ Moore, let's do the same thing. Let's talk about the negatives with DJ Moore. This past season, while we are going to be praising him, going, oh, DJ Moore, you're an elite receiver. You're fantastic. We are going to be praising this man for the amount of targets that he was able to accumulate at such a young age. We do need to acknowledge, and everybody, if you're watching this in the premiere right now, even if you're watching this as a video later, guess in the comment section. Guess who the 3rd player in this offense was with their targets this past season. You're going to have no idea. It's Robbie Anderson at 2. Robbie Anderson was the second receiver in this offense. The only target competition DJ Moore had. Who is the third? I'm giving you all a second. Giving you a second. Amir Abdullah. Amir Abdullah was the third player in this offense with targets at 49. He had no target competition whatsoever. And going forward, while we can say, hell, the quarterback play has been horrendous and he's produced with it, we can still say going forward, DJ Moore has no upside for touchdowns. The reason for this is not DJ Moore, the player himself. It's because the passing efficiency of the Carolina Panthers offense, it's horrible, it's worrisome, and it makes you want to pass on DJ Moore. But there are things to get excited about. There is a reason I'm drafting DJ Moore when he's going neck and neck with Jaylen Waddle. They're going at the 3-4 turn. I'm taking these wide receivers here consistently. And this maybe is very dependent on Underdog Fantasy, because on Underdog Fantasy, when we are drafting at the end of the third, the beginning of the fourth, and I'm staring at a Jaylen Waddle or a DJ Moore, I love taking both wide receivers, because what happens is at the end of the fifth, you know who is there all the time? J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Antonio Gibson. So I am coming away with either going, okay, at the end of the third round, do I want to take Cam Akers and then get Rashad Bateman with my next pick? Or do I want to take Jaylen Waddle and then get Travis Etienne and then Josh Jacobs? So it's a lot to do with the wide receivers being the value in that range, in my opinion, and waiting on running back just a little bit further. But I'm drafting him a ton and going to see what he did last season. Let's go to that RotoViz screener we were talking about, and let's look at wide receivers that were 24 years old or younger. I know y'all are saying, oh, 24 years old. Yes, DJ Moore was that young last year. DJ Moore's only going to be 25 this upcoming season. He was incredibly young in that 2018 draft class. And let's look at players that played at least 12 games, so we can give some room for injury here. And let's look at guys that were able to command 29% of their team's market share. DJ Moore got to 29%. And there were only elite players on this list. You have Odell Beckham Jr., DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Jefferson, AJ Green, Mike Evans. Mike Evans did it twice. Mike Evans was a beast early on in his NFL career. Jarvis Landry in Miami in 2015. And then DJ Moore this past season. So DJ Moore going and just commanding a crap ton of volume. And keep in mind, did this team add anyone? No, they didn't add a receiver. They didn't add a tight end of significance. So it looks like he's in line for this volume again. And I get it. He has horrible quarterback play. Right now, it looks gross. But what I will say is DJ Moore, who has averaged a top 24 finish over the past 3 seasons on a per game basis. He's already been a top 24 wide receiver over the past 3 seasons. He has dealt with the worst quarterback play in the NFL. He's had Cam Newton, not good Cam Newton. No, Cam Newton with the shoulder falling off. Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, Will Grier, Teddy Bridgewater, PJ Walker, Sam Darnold as his combined quarterbacks through this stretch. And if we go through and if we add up all the adjusted yards per pass attempt throughout his entire NFL career, on average, it's been 6.05 for the adjusted yards per pass attempt in this 4-year stretch for DJ Moore. That would have ranked 28th this past season in the NFL. So while the quarterback play looks bad in Carolina, I can't deny it. It looks bad. It cannot be worse than what it's already been. There's only room to improve. You could have, I'm really hoping for it. Trust me, I'm really hoping for it. You could have Jimmy Garoppolo coming over. You could have Baker Mayfield. I know everybody's saying, no, Baker's not going to come. Maybe it's just a negotiating tactic. Maybe they're trying to get Baker for free. I don't know. But you could have one of those quarterbacks coming over, which would immediately be the best quarterback DJ Moore has ever played with. And if somehow either of them could be average, just average, based on the volume monster that DJ Moore has been stepping into the prime of his career, then all of a sudden I do think that while he has no upside for touchdowns, possibly that could change. Now, let's go to our next player here, Mr. Michael Thomas. Now, with Michael Thomas, yeah, we're going to go through the red flags. We're going through the red flags with all these players before we get to the positives. And dear God, you can almost give Michael Thomas just the nickname red flag. Like you could look at him and say, oh yeah, I don't see anything outside of risk with this profile. I'll get to the upside in just one second, because this is someone that has played a total of 7 games since 2019. Since 2019, Michael Thomas has played 7 games, and a couple of those games he left early. Like, not all of those games he was healthy in. And this past season, they shut him down for the entire, like that. This is a wide receiver that didn't take his rehab seriously. And on top of this, is on Twitter just exemplifying. I mean, he's the perfect example of a diva wide receiver going at his coaching staff on Twitter, sending cryptic wide receiver tweets, as we all know and love. And that brought up a lot of questions, primarily based on the fantasy football community asking, okay, well, Michael Thomas just got paid a crap ton of money. Does Michael Thomas have any interest in playing football? Does Michael Thomas care? He clearly doesn't show that he cares by the fact that he didn't take his rehab seriously. I mean, if I was a professional NFL player, I mean, if I had an ankle injury, I'd probably go, okay, hey, team doctors, what do you think I should do? I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do what I feel like. I'm going to listen to y'all. At least that's how I would operate. But who knows? Maybe if I was one of the best athletes on the planet, my mindset would be a little bit different. So there are a lot of worries just about, does Michael Thomas want to play? And then to see the New Orleans Saints so aggressively attack the wide receiver position this year by trading up to get Chris Olave at pick 11. They're like, oh no, we can't wait. We can't hope that Chris Olave falls. We can't hope that Jameson Williams falls. We can't hope that we get Treylon Burks here in mid-round 1. We got to move up and grab one of these guys. Not only are we doing that, but we're not stopping. We're going to go sign Jarvis Landry as well. So these actions by New Orleans makes it scary for Michael Thomas. Now, those are the negatives, and they are very real concerns, very real red flags. There's a reason that Michael Thomas is going round 6. Right now, if we go through and we look at where Michael Thomas is being drafted on Underdog Fantasy, go sign up, use promo code FLOCK, get into drafts with me. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 31. He's being drafted after Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks, Rashad Bateman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Gabriel Davis. This is what we are talking about. And what I want to say is, please understand where winning seasons come from in fantasy football. Understand that to win your fantasy football league, you do not need to get every pick right. You don't need to go through and say, okay, yeah, we got Jonathan Taylor in the first. In the second round, we followed it up. We reached on. You don't have to get every pick right. As long as last year you got one of Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, or Mark Andrews, you're loving life. If we head over to RotoViz and we look at the win rates for Underdog Fantasy, you can actually see if you drafted one of those 3 players that hit an elite ceiling. Cooper Kupp had a win rate of almost 33%. So if you drafted Cooper Kupp, regardless of what else that happened, it didn't matter if you went Christian McCaffrey in the first. If you drafted Cooper Kupp, on average, you had a 33% chance of winning your league. That is obnoxious. And if we go through and if we look at Deebo Samuel, you had a 20% chance of winning your league. If you drafted Mark Andrews, you had a 20% chance of winning your league. Now, this is for a 12-team league. An average win rate is going to be about 8%. So knowing that hitting on one of these players that has that elite ceiling could change everything for you and you don't need to get everything right, I'm chasing that ceiling. Now, of course, you could say, well, Mason, what if he doesn't play again? Because Michael Thomas this past season didn't play at all. He had an ADP of 42. He had an ADP of 42, which was a lot higher than where he's going now. Remember, he was going, mid-round 3 in a lot of these drafts. His win rate there was 2.7%. So it does fall. It goes from about 8% to about 3%. But it gets cut in half. It gets cut by 60% compared to tripling if you hit on that elite level ceiling that we know Mike Thomas has. This is a wide receiver that if we just get in a time machine and go back to 2019, number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, 107 receiving yards a game, 11.5 targets a game, 32% of his team's target share, and 3 yards per route run. Obnoxious numbers. Obnoxious. And also you look at the fact that New Orleans wasn't a good passing offense that year. Now they have Jameis Winston. Now, yes, Winston clearly not talented compared to Breeze. Yeah, Breeze is a much better quarterback from an NFL standpoint. But for producing fantasy wide receiver ones, has there ever been anybody better than Jameis Winston? in reality. Like, we go back to 2019 where last time we saw Jameis Winston with a full year starting, led the NFL in passing yards, was second in passing touchdowns, and supported Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both to be wide receiver ones. So there's an outside chance, of course, it's a very low probability that Winston repeats as that. But if you have Michael Thomas healthy for an entire year, I want to say it's more likely than not that he's the top 12 wide receiver. And wide receivers going ahead of him, Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks, Rashad Bateman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Gabriel Davis. Do any of them have the potential to be a wide receiver? I don't think so. So we're taking Michael Thomas, especially on Underdog. Because remember, Underdog, you got a $25 buy-in, $2 million to first. You got a $5 buy-in, $75,000 to first. Those massive tournaments. So we're taking it, just swinging for the fences, hoping for something good, knowing that a lot of times we're going to strike out. It's like baseball today. You're going for a home run or you're striking out. I don't care about hitting a single. Now, thank you for being a part of the Flock Sport on the channel. I had two other wide receivers we were going to get to, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into these players. Thank you again. I appreciate all of you. I hope you have a great day, and I hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.